and that helped my bowels move before running either a short run or a long run and race day. You don't want to have any accidents anytime during training or race day. I know it happens, okay? It's all good if it does happen. Own up to it. But you gotta learn from that and hear me out. Pre-run routine. It's very, very important. I'm Trizzy.
And I'm Leah.
And this is Ticket to Anywhere podcast, bringing you the gear, tools, and tips to equip you for a travel-filled life.
No matter your travel experience or lack thereof, we aim to be your first stop when you're thinking of where to go, how to get there, what to bring, and what to do.
Catch the latest episode every other Wednesday on YouTube or your favorite listening app.
We'd love to connect with you. Find Ticket to Anywhere on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, and LinkedIn.
Welcome to another episode of the Ticket to Anywhere podcast. I am your host for today, Trizzy at Triz Inc. I am obnoxiously wearing my Great Wall of China finisher medal, decked out in gold. Holla! Yes, this is my first solo episode. Leah is bogged down by the corporate world right now. Somebody needs to save her. It can't be me because I am bogged down by the corporate world as well. Like we mentioned in our last China Part 1 episode, stress-free guide on how to visit China. But this one specifically is if you are interested in racing the Great Wall of China or doing any other vacation endurance races around the world. This episode provides preparation tips, on-land tips, training tips, and just fun resources that you guys can check out. And I shared my experience of running on the Great Wall of China. So it was kind of like a general vacation race and a specific Great Wall of China marathon story time. But yeah, one thing that really fueled me throughout my training process and specifically in China and in the race was this amazing drink that I have here. It is not tea. It is Pocari Sweat. And I really wanted to highlight this brand because I don't think I would have made it through China for the 2 weeks in China without Pocari Sweat. This is an electrolyte drink, and I would say it is the best electrolyte drink that I've ever had. That's why it's here, and I was really excited that they do sell this in America, specifically Los Angeles. It is just a great balance of water dilution of sweetness and saltiness. It's just perfect. So shout out to Pocari Sweat and shout out to me doing a half marathon on the Great Wall of China. So enjoy this episode and thank you guys for tuning in. Cheers. I just ran a half marathon on the Jin Shanling Great Wall of China. For those who are just listening, if you hop onto YouTube, you'll see this nice shiny gold medal with a dragon decked out on it. On one side is completely gold. The other side got a little splash of white for, I think it's like coloring. I don't know what these flowers are. I'm not a flower person, but it is a beautiful finisher medal. Probably one of my favorite ones. Running this race is one of the proudest things I could say I've done. And it all started because a long time ago, I was just joking around, talking and saying, the only time I'll visit China is if I run a marathon on the Great Wall of China. And then I didn't realize it was an actual event. So I was like, let's make this happen. So before this major race, my credentials were one full marathon and several half marathons. And that's about it. Nothing over 26.2 miles yet. Or who knows if I will want to do that. After one of my half marathons in 2017, I decided that I'm going to run tire, which is retire from racing. You know, after 7 years, I started missing the feeling of being very disciplined during training and the feeling of race day and running through the finish line. Like it's something that a lot of people question, They're like, you would pay several hundreds of dollars just to race? You would pay money to do a 5K, do a 10K, half marathon, etc., etc.? And I'm like, yeah, like if you haven't done it for yourself, you won't know that accomplishing feeling. So if you haven't done it and if you question it, please consider just trying out a 5K. It is an amazing feeling. So then after missing it, I realized I'm going to jump back into it. I'm going to jump back into racing. And I knew I had to do it big, knowing I'm that type of person, go big or go home. And in this case, I did both because I'm Chinese. Although my parents are not from China, but my parents are full Chinese, but they were born and raised in Vietnam. So, but I mean, it was nice to, do it big, run the half marathon on the Great Wall of China, and go to the motherland for the first time. So I'm going to break it down for you. Originally, the race was supposed to be on Sunday, April 14th. And I did this in the year of 2024, Year of the Dragon. So it was a really huge deal for me and great timing that I felt this spark of want to run this race. And then 2 weeks before we were going to leave, before our flight to China, the race organizers reached out and was like, the Chinese government has changed your race date. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have been scammed. I've been scammed out of $345 because I've never heard of a race as big as a half marathon on the Great Wall of China race being changed so last minute. So that's why I thought I was being scammed. But luckily, something in me was like, this is legit. You've been training for 3 months. You worked so hard for this moment, and just make any adjustments that you need. So I made flight adjustments, hotel adjustments. It was a whole mess and a few extra hundreds of dollars, which sucks. But I made it happen. Everything was smooth after that. So we good. So luckily, the race day only changed to the following Sunday. My original flight back home was Friday, April 19th. The race changed to April 21st, the Sunday. So all I had to do was just change my flight back home to Monday, April 22nd, meaning that my flight was going to be the day after my race, which is definitely not ideal, but we made it happen, made it work, and got back home safely. Body was extremely sore. It was probably the worst jet lag I've ever felt. But I still felt that need to do more of these type of vacation races, they call it. And during my research with the Great Wall of China race, I found a whole bunch of other really, really cool, unique races around the world. And this was a really good way to tie in my love for travel and my love for fitness. So during the process, I learned a lot of things that I'm going to bring on to my future races, to my future trips, and I'm going to share them with you. And let's jump right into it. Oh, and I just wanted to disclaim that I am in no way a doctor or medical professional. I am not a nutritionist. I am not a certified personal trainer. This is just me speaking from my experience regarding training, regarding racing, and regarding traveling. So if you are thinking about doing any of these races, please go consult an actual doctor. Okay, so these are going to be just very general tips, and then I'll also share my specific experience with the Great Wall of China as well. So preparing for the race, how do you get the idea, right? Have a desired country in mind. Mine was obviously China. It's always good if you haven't visited a certain country that you want to, and might as well make a race out of it too, right? And then from there, you want to find out what other factors there's going to be with these races besides just running miles, right? Is there going to be incline? Is this going to be a Spartan race where you're going to have to crawl through mud, swim through freezing cold water, jump into lakes, jump over fire, things like that? Also, like, is this event very popular? If it's popular, then you might have to consider how crowded it might be at the finish line during the race, or even at the start line, hotels, flights, etc. And also check about the weather too. I know if it's winter here in the United States and you want to do a marathon in Australia, it's their summer, so it might be hot over there. And for the Great Wall of China, it was more so elevation and what the condition of the Great Wall is. Is it sturdy? Is it rugged? It was all the above, basically. Next, you want to find out if the country requires any documents, any visas. In particular, with China, there was a visa process, and we talked about it in our first China Part 1 video that came before this episode. It's the stress-free guide on how to visit China, and I go into details of the visa process. And along with the visa process, the race specifically, the race organization, once you submit your payment and your registration, they do require that you submit a doctor's note approving of your health condition that yes, you can indeed finish a half marathon on the Great Wall of China or a full marathon on the Great Wall of China. And also they want your blood type. So I had to go to the doctor, get my blood drawn because I didn't really know what my blood type was. I know this is tricky for a lot of people because it's like, why do they need all this information, especially blood type? So if you're not okay with that, then, there's other races that you can do outside of the Great Wall of China. So don't worry about it. This is just specifically what I encountered signing up for the Great Wall of China half marathon. Another thing that I learned from this trip and this race specifically is that it's not cheap. So if you're not as flexible on time, like let's say as a digital nomad is, or somebody who gets to work remote around the world, my advice is to financially and mentally prepare yourself a year in advance or 6 months in advance. The race, if it's a very popular race, hotels might be expensive around the area, flights, and racing is not cheap because there's a lot of permits that has to go into place to shut things down. Although the Great Wall of China didn't shut anything down, it was open to tourists as well. Yeah, so just, prepare yourself mentally, financially. When you're booking flights for your trip, I would say, and this goes part of why you should prepare financially, I would say pay for seats that you will be comfortable in, premium maybe, or maybe pay for your seats in advance. So if you're an aisle person because you like to get up and move around, this would be the type of trip that you would really want an aisle seat for, so you could kind of keep limber and flexible and mobile on like a long flight. What we did was we flew Starlux on our long haul flight from LAX to Taipei, Taiwan. That one we paid for an exit row, and that exit row had no other seats in front of us. It was basically the front of a section. So I got to get up, stretch, move around, and just make sure that I didn't feel as tight in my body as I would have if I sat in the middle of a 3-seater. And you don't have to do this for both your flights, for your outbound and your return. I would just prioritize it for the outbound flight. Now, if your race organization changes race date on the last minute, then I would say prioritize like a very comfortable seating arrangement for yourself for your outbound and return flight, because that's what we basically had to do. So part of the preparation also involves your training. And your training varies, right? Depending on the length of your race. If you're doing a half marathon, from my experience, I just trained for 3 months. For my full marathon, I trained for 4 months. People who's running like 50 miles or ultras, which is 100 miles, I'm not sure how long you need in training, but I feel like it's going to be more than 3 or 4 months. So just make sure that your training accommodates for whatever race length it is. One thing that really helped me in preparing for my race on the Great Wall of China was I literally had to visualize what the race was going to be like. And this was through YouTube, this was through a lot of photos and pictures from seeing how the Great Wall was like in history books, on social media, and just having that idea in my head helped me figure out like, okay, I'm going to need different shoes. I can't be running with regular running shoes that I usually run with. I gotta consider a trail running shoes. There's gonna be a lot more incline that I'm not used to. I live in Los Angeles. There's like a good amount of incline, but it's not considered like San Francisco. It's not considered like Denver's elevation. It's not considered like Seattle with all the hills. So once you visualize how your race is going to be, let's say if you're running in somewhere in Europe where there's a lot of cobblestone, you might have to take that into consideration for your training. It's not required, but I do highly recommend that following a training plan will definitely help you out, whether it's through the Nike Training Club app or if you've been following somebody that you admire, reach out to them and ask them, hey, what's your training plan? Can I follow it or something? Do you have any suggestions on a training plan, this and that? I personally use Nike Training Club app. It was nice to just have it in the palm of my hand and click like done, did this, did that. Like I said, I'm not a certified personal trainer, but I do think incorporating inclines is really important to the training process. Inclines kind of help strengthen a lot of your core, a lot of muscles around the legs, and it will probably help. Like how I said, probably help, because I'm not 100% sure. This is from what I've experienced during my training. Helps open up the hips a little bit because you're kind of, have to lift up the hip flexors to work them. And I also incorporated a lot of mobility and flexibility workout. Stretching was very, very important. Yoga was close to a daily activity during the training process, and also throw in some strength training as well. You want to be able to strengthen your lower back. You want to be able to strengthen your core. You want to be able to mobilize your ankles. For the Great Wall specifically, it was very, very, very important for me to kind of strengthen my core and stability, because you're on the Great Wall of China. There's some parts that are very well preserved where there's like the wall, the actual wall, the barrier. But then there's parts where there's no wall, no barriers, so you're just on this path. And any moment, if somebody's gonna run past you and they knock you, I could be flying off the Great Wall of China. And also when you're going up the steps on the Great Wall of China, there's some that are like tiny and there's some that are like really long where you have to like kind of nearly climb up, use your arms to climb up. And once you get up, you kind of like get a little winded. So you have to really like activate your core to keep you stabilized and balanced so you're not falling on the stairs or off the wall. When you're going to another country for these races too, something that you should look into is the type of food that they have at these countries. Food really does play an important part because that's your fuel, that's your energy, and it is highly recommended that you incorporate some of the cuisines into your training. I incorporated a lot more Chinese food during my training process. Now, I'm Chinese, and Chinese cuisine isn't like my favorite. That's only because I don't make good Chinese food. My mom makes really good Chinese food, and she doesn't live with me. She's in Seattle. I'm here in LA. So I don't get that luxury that I had when I was younger. But I knew that Chinese food had to play a big part. And so I had to learn how to cook some dishes. And I get to China. Luckily it's not too far from what I usually eat in China. Lots of noodle dishes, dumplings, wontons, and my favorite, jiangbing, which is like a omelet crepe. And for my breakfasts, I usually incorporate different types of eggs. Trying to adjust to the Chinese food wasn't much of a problem for me. So if I were to do like a half marathon in Finland, I might have to incorporate reindeer in my training, which I don't even know if there's any reindeer meat here in the US. I don't know. But just something like that to consider. Now, when it comes to your shoes, when it comes to your clothes, have something in mind picked out for race day already. Train in those. Train in the same shoes, train in the same clothes, train in the same gear that you're going to wear, whether it's a fanny pack or armband, which is something I had to train in because I'm not used to running with a fanny pack or an armband that holds my phone. I'm usually a minimal runner. I don't like running with anything besides my phone. And also, luckily, because I was vlogging my whole training journey, I had a 360 with me during my training. So as I'm running, I have a 360 in my hand. So that's part of training on race day because I was also filming myself with my Insta360 camera on race day. So anything that you're going to wear, do, whatever on race day has to be incorporated in your training. During my training, I created a pre-run routine. Basically continued this pre-run routine during the tapering phase and then race day. And most importantly, this is very important, train your bowels to move so that it moves before you run. This was part of my pre-run routine. And if you need any tips, what I did was eat a banana, drink black tea, specifically Earl Grey, and just do like a lot of cat-cows and barrel rolls. So it's kind of like mobilizing not just my back and my lower back, but also kind of like secretly moves my stomach. And if your body allows a really good low squat, and that helped my bowels move before running either a short run or a long run and race day. You don't want to have any accidents anytime during training or race day. I know it happens, okay? It's all good if it does happen. Own up to it. But you got to learn from that and hear me out. Pre-run routine. It's very, very important. And this is for training, and this is for when you get to the country. This is for tapering phases, and this is for race day, okay? So let's quickly jump into packing. Check the official race site to see what they recommend you wearing. Sometimes maybe it's like a polar race. You need some gloves, you need some earmuffs, maybe some hot hand warmers, toe warmers. Obviously, pack your planned attire of race day and also your running shoes and also a post-race shoes or slippers or sandals. Regardless of a short run or a long run, I usually want to have my feet just breathe out of my shoes. So I would hop right into like my Nike slides or some Crocs. For your flights, and this is generally even if you're going to race or not to race, wear some compression socks on the flight. Your body will thank you. Your blood flow in your legs will thank you. Pack any gels or powders or vitamins that you need. And also, this goes with training with these gels and powders. Pack some recovery tools. I think these are very important. I brought Salonpas, which is kind of like a patch that has like a heat and cooling effect to it. And I also brought my ice/warm ball. So basically what it is, it's like a metal ball. And then inside, there's two options of a ball. There's like a cold one where you could put it in the freezer. And then if you put it in the metal, that metal ball turns into kind of like an ice pack. You could press it against any tight knots that you have, roll it out. And then the other ball is a warm ball where you put it in the microwave for like 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds max, and put it in the metal and it turns into a heating ball. So I specifically just brought the warm ball with me, thinking that I was going to have more access to a microwave than a refrigerator, but I was so wrong. So what I did was I just kind of like improv'd. I had these hot hand warmers as well too. So I just took it out, activated it, shook it. Once it got warm, I put it in the warm ball and it worked. And so I was kind of using that in the morning to warm up my knees, warm up other joints that I had. So it was great. And if you have this item and if you have space, I would consider bringing a massage percussion device. It could be the Hyperice Hypervolt, or I believe it's called a Theragun. Mine is really big. I have like the first generation, so I didn't bring that. I know there's been like smaller travel size ones that you could bring. So, and it's TSA approved, so make sure you keep that in your check-in bag and not your carry-on. Otherwise, if you don't want to bring the heavy massage percussion device, that's okay, because what we did was we basically had like a massage every single day, mainly in Beijing. We had like foot spas, we had fire cupping. There's a lot of Eastern medicine techniques out there that will be great to use prior to race day and to kind of like maintain your body. That's what we did, and I loved it. I think that's basically it for the preparation part. Also, should ask yourself what the purpose is for the event that you're doing. And there's no right or wrong answers to it, right? It could just be like, I just want to run this race. I just want to get this medal. Mine was, I just wanted to see if my body could still carry me through 13.1 miles. I had been not racing for 7 years, and I just felt like I was in a third of a life crisis or something, and didn't feel like my body was where it was at before. So I wanted to see if I could, bring back that discipline that I once had. If I could bring back that physicality and that mental strength that I once had. And throughout this process, I found out that I didn't need to prove anything to myself. I'm just thankful to have a body that moves still. Might not be how it moved before, but it still moves in a way where I could train for a week, for a month, for 3 months. And it moved in a way where I could race a half marathon on the Great Wall of China on rugged steps. So my purpose definitely shifted by the end of that whole adventure, that whole journey. So that's why I say there's no right or wrong answer to knowing what your purpose is for doing what you do. Dang, I don't know why I got so emotional. Damn, I wish Leah was here. Wonder if she will cry too. Let's talk about when you get to your country. Originally, for me, I was going to spend about a week in Beijing before the race date. When they changed the race to the following Sunday, there's nothing I could do, right? I basically had 2 weeks before race date. But even after the 3rd or 4th day in China, I realized my body was already adjusted to the time zone. My body felt ready to race and get it over with. But sadly, I couldn't race yet because I had to wait another week for it. So my anxiety not anxiety, I would say I was becoming a little bit restless and antsy to just finish this race so I could just mentally relax. So with that said, I would say give yourself maybe 3 or 4 days, depending on the race length And if you need to acclimate even longer, for sure do that. But for any race that is equivalent to running a half marathon on the Great Wall of China, I would suggest just arriving 3 to 4 days before the actual race day. And I believe your body will be totally fine. And then after that, oh my gosh, you will get to relax and have fun and eat whatever without being scared that your stomach is gonna have problems or you're gonna get injured. And like I mentioned before about training your bowels, when you're there in the country, when you get there, continue to train it. Readjust it so that the timing is on the exact time zone of the race. And I think what helped me was taking these gummies called prunies. So back in March of this year, March 2024, Leah and we went to a travel goods show in Las Vegas. We met the owner and the founder, the creator, the genius behind prunies. And she gave us a sample pack. And then I was like, okay, cool. I'll take this to China with me. I am that type of person to unfortunately have annoying, damn, I don't want to be too TMI, but let's just say constipation during travels. So with these prunies, I started just eating maybe like once a day, twice a day, right when I landed in Beijing. And these prunies, oh my gosh, they helped. They like readjusted my bowel movements. This is an episode about bowel movements all of a sudden, but it readjusted accordingly. So, and it's not a laxative. So these prunies are no added sugar. They're vegan. They're gluten-free. The packaging and the product itself is biodegradable. It's compostable. So it is just 100%, in my eyes, healthy and Trizzy approved to eat. I'll link them in the description because I feel like this needs to be for every traveler, racer, anybody training their bowels to be a little bit better. These were amazing and they tasted so good too. With that said, it's kind of whack that I'm ending it on bowel movements, but so if you do want to move forward with this, there's 3 race organizations that I came across during my research. The first one, Albatross Adventures, they are actually a tour package with race. So they cover hotel, they cover meals, and they cover race day of transportation. That is a great option. They also have other really phenomenal looking races. Like you could run in Jordan and run past, or the finish line is going to be at Petra. But if that is too pricey, which it was for me, and I wanted to kind of have more of a flexible schedule and not rely on a big group tour, there is one called Conquer the Great Wall, and the one that I ran with was called Run Great Wall. Everything will be linked in the show notes and in the description. But if you are looking to do like other races, specifically not just the Great Wall of China, these are great resources. Albatross, like I mentioned, vacationraces.com, and New Global Adventures, which I believe they were like the US mediators of the Run Great Wall organization that I ran with. But when I checked them out on their website, they had tons of other really, really cool endurance events around the world too. So those are the 3 that I suggest. If you guys are interested in running the Great Wall of China, please do not hesitate to DM me personally at Triz Inc. or at Ticket to Anywhere Podcast or at Maui and Trizzy. If you want to see my 3-month training journey, I have it on my YouTube channel, Triz Inc. And it also highlights my trip in China, my 2-week trip in China, and the race day my other YouTube channel with my partner called Maui and Trizzy. We have a China series. And again, thank you for listening in on another episode of the Ticket to Anywhere podcast. Leah, we miss you. This is Trizzy at Triz Inc.
This is Leah at LA in Flight.
To find even more travel tips on budgeting, destinations, and our favorite items, sign up for our monthly newsletter, The Check-In, linked in the show notes or description.
This is the Ticket to Anywhere podcast. Thanks for listening.